credit to 55% rather than 50%, which also benefits ITIN filers because they would get a higher rate of return on and proportion of their taxes back at a quicker rate. So again, I think this is a more fair and appropriate outcome because it is difficult to explain to some of my constituents why it's refundable for people with ITINs, because that includes people that may have income in other countries that is not showing up on their federal income taxes, and they would not qualify if all the income was included, but they're getting a refundable tax credit from the state of Colorado. So again, I offer this amendment for consideration.
Thank you, Representative Marshall. Representative Weissman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I can only respond conceptually because other than a phone picture that a member of the committee sent me, I haven't seen this amendment before. As to ITIN filers, yes, ITIN filers are eligible for EITC in Colorado. They have been since 2020 because ITIN filers are taxpayers. They work, they pay into the system. They actually aren't eligible for a ton of other things, and that's a much bigger conversation that we don't intend to have one way or the other here. But contributions paid in by ITIN filers are in the tens of billions nationwide. They make up a very small percentage of EITC recipients. Here in Colorado, we were an earlier state, I don't know for sure, second or third, to do this. And frankly, to me, that is to treat similarly situated taxpayers similarly. ITINs, individual taxpayer identification numbers, are a methodology or a tool, a tax compliance device developed by the IRS, I think, in about 1996. They are used in Colorado as they are in any state. So that is not a new concept in the world, nor is it new to Colorado tax law. Really out of fairness to similarly situated taxpayers, frankly, many of whom live in the district that I'm sworn to represent, we have to ask for a no vote on this.
Anybody have any additional comments? Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what concerns me about this amendment is that it makes an assumption, well, let me back it up, but we know that EITC is determined on the unit of the family. And so what this amendment does, it makes an assumption that if there's an adult in the household that is using an ITIN, that everyone in that household, their children, would also not be citizens. And so we know that many ITIN filers have citizen children, and so what this would do is it would essentially set them aside as, well, not valid.
Representative Marshall.
If one of the taxpayers or they have the child tax credit with a valid social security number, they should be eligible to participate in that. And again, we sometimes get overly focused on what we just want to see. Again, ITIN filers can include people that, let's say we have a professor from Oxford who comes here to teach as a visiting professor at the University of Colorado, Denver, and they make $25,000 in earned income in the United States. They still have to file and pay taxes with an ITIN for that income, even if they still are making like $300,000 back in the United Kingdom. So again, the concern is not making it refundable. I have no problem in getting all the money back to the individuals who worked and get the government off their back and let them get all the tax money back and increasing it to 55%. But I do think there are some issues that are not really fully vetted or thought through, saying if you don't have a valid social security number and you just file with an ITIN, you should be similarly treated, because there's a reason there's a valid social security number and an ITIN. They're not similarly situated.
And Representative Marshall, I think you meant 300,000 pounds sterling. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for raising my hand and interrupting your joke. I appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion. I think there's some interesting facets. I would be really surprised if the examples like the hypothetical of Oxford make up a very significant number of these claims. And for me, the refundability is such a critical component of this for the families that are really living on the edge in Colorado. And so I think that this could certainly bear some further examination about people that are earning considerable foreign income, but I think for the vast majority ITIN filers in Colorado who stand to benefit from this. The refundability is critical to helping them afford housing and put food on the table. So for that reason, I'll also be a no on this amendment.
Any further discussion? Is there any objection to L? Yes, I'm seeing several objections. Ms. Shipley, would you poll the committee, please?
Representatives Degree Kennedy.
No.
Rizal.
No.
Garcia.
No.
Hartsook.
No.
Kip.
No.
Lindstedt.
No.
Marshall.
Yes.
Zucker excused. Weinberg.
Yes.
Joseph excused, Mr. Chair.
No. And that fails 2-7. Are there any other amendments to the committee on House Bill 1134? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the amendment phase. And that brings us to wrap up. Representative Root now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the members of the committee. Really appreciate your consideration of this bill. As you heard from testimony and from the bill draft itself, the intention of this bill is pretty simple. It's about helping working families get the economic relief that they so desperately need. And I'm just gonna tie it back to when I was 13 years old and the amount of relief that the earned income tax credit provided to my mother, myself, and my brother as we were struggling paycheck to paycheck. We lost our home during the Great Recession during that time. But because of the earned income tax credit, we were able to stay afloat. And that's what this does for so many folks across Colorado, thousands of folks within each of our districts. And so when you're voting in favor of this bill, which I hope you do, just know there are people just like me who you'll be helping every single year. Thank you so much. I urge a yes vote.
Thank you. Representative Weissman.
Thank you. Tough to follow that, but members, we all at times speak uniquely about the realities of our districts, often in terms of rural districts that are at risk of being forgotten on the Front Range or in other respects. I represent a lower and moderate income district. I represent a district where a lot of people struggle. I was fortunate growing up. Both of my parents worked. We had money for food, the mortgage, clothes, schooling. A lot of people in our state and in some of our districts, including both of ours in particular, are not so fortunate. So every day that I'm down here, I grapple with how can I try to smooth that out just a little bit. Depending on the data that you look to, anywhere between 40% and half of households in this country don't have more than $500 saved up for an emergency. In a country that overall is as wealthy as ours is, that should frankly knock the wind out of all of us. Now that's a bigger conversation than any one bill is going to solve, but in the context where that is true, where 40 or 50% of households don't have several $100s to deal with a car issue or the fridge dying or any of a number of things that might happen, the relief that can be delivered by the EITC can really step into that gap in a big way. Maybe some of us are lucky and we could ride out that $500 emergency, maybe even that $1,000 emergency. That is not the reality for a lot of people in our state. It's not the reality for a lot of people in North Aurora. That is what motivates me most powerfully to bring this bill. As noted, at the same time, we believe that we are fixing a problem in the child care credits. It's a modest fix. It will make that part of our tax code better. We also believe that there are some efficiencies and transparency and just sort of comprehensibility to be had in the corporate changes as well. So we are asking for the committee's support for 1134. I want to thank the witnesses who made time to talk with us today and for the committee's discussion.
Committee, any questions, comments? Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.